Do you need to buy stuff to do better as a homeschool mom? Absolutely not. Is it fun once in a while to find some cool things to help your life run a little bit easier or be a little more fun as a homeschool mom? Absolutely. So if you're not looking to spend any money and don't want any ideas, definitely click out of this video. But today I'm going to be sharing 20 of our favorites from the past year as homeschooling family. And that falls under the categories of so many different things, just 20 different things we have really been loving. Sully and I are going to share them with you today. Hi, Sarah here and Sullivan, my 5-month-old. Today we are going to be sharing 20 of our favorites from the last year as a homeschool family. Not all of these are homeschool related, but where does homeschool end and mothering begin? I don't really know. They kind of go hand in hand. And as the janitor and the teacher and the chef and the cook and the principal and all the different things, we are kind of doing all of the things as homeschool parents. And so these things among different categories can definitely be helpful as a homeschooling mom. And so I'm going to share 20 of my favorites with my little squirmy worm today. First up is this really beautiful and not super expensive vegan leather bag that I got for Christmas this past year. I have absolutely loved it on multiple occasions. It's sturdy, it's great size, so I can fit baby stuff, I can fit homeschool stuff, I can fit, like clothes and stuff if I'm going to use it as like an overnight bag. It can fit so much in it, but it's also really beautiful and sturdy and easy to clean, which is very important as a mom, especially with a baby. And I have just absolutely loved this bag. I've had multiple people ask me where I got it and, where to find it and that kind of thing. And so I thought it definitely had to make this list. A month or two ago, I heard about this for the first time and I was like, how did I not know about this? I was watching different recipe videos on different reels on Instagram, and I saw someone using a oil sprayer. Like you pour your olive oil or your avocado oil into a sprayer, it's glass and it's got like a plastic top that you can use for spraying, and that will turn your oil into something you can spray on, like to spray on your pans or to spray on your muffin tins or whatever you are using, so you don't have to buy cooking spray. I thought this was genius, and I don't know how I didn't know about it beforehand, but absolutely love it. Much healthier than anything they add to those cooking oils, and more affordable too, because you're just using what you already have, but it allows you to spray, and it's worked wonderfully. Another favorite of mine is this book stand. We have it displayed 24/7 basically on our dining room shelf. That's where we homeschool. And I right now keep our artwork book from my Daily Riches curriculum, where we do lots of different subjects, but one of those is picture study. And so every week we have a different painting that we are studying from a different painter. We do 3 a year, and so right now we have a Monet painting up, and it's just really wonderful to keep that displayed on this book stand. It keeps it nice and sturdy, it keeps it upright. We use this when we are doing nature study or science, so that I can put the book that we're looking at, or if I have an iPad picture of, if I took a picture of a hydrangea outside on a walk, or a cardinal or something, I can put that up on my iPad and put it on the book stand, and that way my kids can use that as their reference when they're drawing. You can use it as a cookbook stand when you're cooking. There's so many different uses for it. You can display a picture book just that you want to display because it's really beautiful, or that you're in the middle of reading with your kids. You can use that to hold up the book while you read if you have a squirmy baby in your lap. There's so many different things you can use them for. And I literally have it used in our house 24/7 because it's displaying our artwork, and then we pull it down quite often for many of these different uses. Another thing we finally bought that I have loved that was just a few dollars is a calendar of firsts. You can find many different variations of this. I just found this inexpensive one on Amazon, and literally all it has is a little spot for every single day of the year. And what you do is especially in the spring is a good time to start it, but you can start it any time of the year. So for us, we started it in the winter. There wasn't a whole lot to write because not much happens in a Minnesota winter, but as we transitioned to spring, we would be outside and my 4-year-old would say, "Oh, a robin!" And she saw a robin. So we wrote down on that day in March, first robin. So you start to write when the first things, when you first saw the first tulip, when you saw the first goose flying back north for, you know, the spring, when you see your first marigold, when you see your first daffodil, when you see the first like thunderstorm, when the first thunderstorm happens, when the first snowfall happens, when you see leaves turning orange in the fall. So it's a way to keep track of all of nature's firsts every year and to kind of compare from year to year how it changes, how it's different. Another thing I recently added to our homeschool room, and this, I was really excited to be able to add this because we do not have much wall space in our dining room that we use. We have a whole wall of brick and fireplace. We have a whole wall with a bay window. We have like a couple weird walls with doors on them and things, and a big doorway. And then we have the only half wall we really have that's like a full wall, but it's not very large. We already have shelves and like a buffet on, so there's not much wall space to hang things on. However, I really wanted to fit some maps in our homeschool space because we're constantly looking up, like when we're reading in a book, like we read the 21 Balloons, we wanted to look up where San Francisco was. We wanted to look at his path across the world and where Krakatoa is and where the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean are and all of those things. Like they're constantly coming up in multiple things we're learning about. And so having a map handy is really helpful. And so I bought these inexpensive laminated maps. I really liked that they were more muted colors because it is our dining space too. Like we have people over and we entertain here and we eat here as a family. So it's not like super blue and like red and pink and orange and all of the colors, which are beautiful, but just kind of a lot to look at sometimes. And so I love the muted colors. And then I bought these really nice magnetic holders so that we could hang them up and I could take them off. And then I ended up hanging them on the door because we have a really big pantry door and they fit perfectly on there. And then I just used some painter's tape to stick them so they're not falling off a lot. And I actually ended up gluing the magnetic hangers shut so that they wouldn't fall out because I know that's all I'm going to use them for anyway. And they have worked out so well. My kids are constantly touching them, and because they're laminated, they're not getting wrecked. They look beautiful. They've lasted really well this year, and I just absolutely love them and would definitely recommend them to homeschool families. For Christmas, my oldest daughter got a digital bookmark, and it allows her to keep track of how long she's read, set timers and things like that, which has worked out really well because every day she's required to read for 20 minutes of a book that I choose, and then she also can read her own books on her own time. But especially this summer when she's doing our summer reading program at our library, she has to check off a picture for every 15 minutes she's read. And so she can really easily keep track of that. And I just think it's really cool for kids to see how long they actually read for, because sometimes you read and you lose track of time. So it can be a great way for them to keep track of that as well. Something else we bought last summer were Gab watches. We had tried a different watch from a different carrier, didn't love it. And it was time for my 7-year-old to also get a watch because they're often playing in the neighborhood and at friends' houses, and I just really wanted a way to make sure they're safe, to be able to keep track of where they're located, and for them to be able to call us or text us if they're not feeling safe or they have a question or whatnot. And so we ended up taking advantage of like a back to school time deal that Gab Watches had, and have absolutely loved them. We paid for them with our own money, like all of the stuff I'm talking about in this video. Not sponsored, but I have absolutely loved them. We've got the liability insurance, or we got the insurance on it, so if they break they will get replaced, which I think is necessary with kids. And I really love that Amazon carries like different bands and screen protectors and things so that we don't have to spend a ton of money buying them directly from Gab, because one of my daughters has broken the screen protector like 5 times. I don't know how. Every time she falls, somehow it gets cracked. So that's been really nice, so we can inexpensively replace those, and I have just loved it. The service has been really great. They work really well. There's not much they can do with them. They can, like, when they move, they get like coins and they can buy different animals that they can like feed and stuff, but other than that, there's not much they can do with it. So they are having to be responsible with technology without having access to anything that I don't want them to have access to, and we can get a hold of them easily, which I love. With the 10-year-old daughter, it's definitely been a birds and the bees ongoing conversation in our house about body changes and puberty and all of the things that come along with somebody getting older and eventually becoming an adult. And so I have really loved quite a few books I have read with my oldest daughter to help guide these conversations. One of which is the series that I've absolutely loved to help teach my kids at different ages about all of these different things, and it helps really open up the conversation to allow them to come to us with questions, but it's a really great guide to teach them, especially the first time you talk about intimacy. It was hard for me just because it feels like my child has lost their innocence once I tell them the full truth of how that works. And so having a book that could kind of walk me through it so that it wasn't awkward and so that I could say it correctly, and it was just, but it also ties back to God, was really, really helpful. And there are books that we'll read as she gets older and all of our kids get older. But there are a couple others as well that I've read with her that are not just about that, but also about, like, you know, what lies that girls believe and how God can tell us the truth through his word, and how we can come back to his word to find out what is true, and what's right and what's wrong and things like that. And just so many of the questions kids have really help us tackle those and help me to get ahead of those questions, even to answer these questions so she's not left wondering. I'm going to link to a bunch in the description so that you guys can check them out for yourself, but they have been so helpful for us. 2 summers ago, I was determined to come up with a solution for a mud kitchen for my kids to play outside that was affordable and didn't require a ton of work on my end. And so I came up with a solution. I have a whole blog post on it. I will link below if you guys are interested. But for $200, I made this really big mud kitchen using 2 garden benches that I ended up just moving the lower shelf up and then digging holes to put the legs into the ground deeper so it'd be lowered to kid height. I added a bunch of like Dollar Tree cutting boards and tongs and whisks and scoopers and things like that, muffin tins, all that kind of stuff, as well as some thrifted, and just put them in milk crates. And my kids, with a bunch of sand, we keep our sand table over there, so they usually use sand instead of mud, but they are creating all the time. I use old laundry detergent canisters and we fill them up with water so that they have water to use and mix in, and they will spend hours out there. I just really wanted something for my kids in the warmer months here in Minnesota to be able to create and do without destroying our yard and without like pulling all our flowers out and stuff like that. And so letting them explore in the mud kitchen has been wonderful. Even my 10-year-old still plays in it, and my 4-year-old and 7-year-old absolutely love it. The neighborhood kids are always over playing with it. It's the best $200 I've ever spent, and just a really great solution if you don't want to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars, but also don't want to have to like figure it all out on your own for cheaper. Something we've used for over a year and loved in our homeschool is a digital microscope. We absolutely love this one. What I love about it is that you can take it off of the stand and bring it outside, bring it around your house. If you want to go look at flowers in your yard, you don't have to cut the flowers and bring them in. You can take it outside and look on the screen at all the different things in nature. Take it on walks, take it on hikes, and look at things up close. And I just love the display. It's much easier to see than having to squint into a microscope, which is a good skill for kids to have, but it just is so much easier to use. The picture's bigger. You can look at it on a screen and then draw from it a lot easier than a normal microscope, and it's not super expensive. Really easy to use. Even my 4-year-old will carry it around the house anytime she remembers that we have it, and look at the cat fur and the rug and books and stuff like that with it, which is just so fun. It's just really kid friendly and a great tool to have in your homeschool. Another thing that I'm sure I'm not alone in my homeschool is that we check out a ton of books from the library. I'm at a phase now where I usually go online and get different ideas for picture books, and I will request 30 plus. 30 is the max I can request at a time. I've been known to request 60 and use my daughter's card in addition to mine to request books. especially when I'm creating different resources and trying to read a lot of books to pick which ones I want to use for the resource. So I have a library cart. It's not really a library cart. It's just a tote, like a collapsible tote, plastic tote that has handle, like a dolly almost. And so I can take it to the library, load up our books, then I don't have to carry them. I can carry the baby, hold my 4-year-old's hand, and like pull this cart or have one of the kids pull it, and bring it in the house, load up our books in our living room, and then it collapses flat and it can fit really easily in our car, and I absolutely love it. Another thing that I recently bought to help my kids learn fractions is this fraction game, but I don't play it as a game, but what I love about it is it folds up flat like a book, but it's magnetic inside, and so it has different types of fractions, circles, rectangles, things like that, so that you can show your kids what different fractions look like and how you can mix and match fractions, like 2/4 equals 1/2 and things like that. And it's just a really great visual way to teach fractions, but I love that it's magnetic so they're not getting lost, and it all folds up into one little case that's really easy to store. Another thing I have loved, I think we've been using this for 2 years now. We have been loving Earthly's tinctures. We've for sure used Nourish Her Naturally. I've been using for 2 years. It's kind of like our natural vitamin that we use, that we take every day. And then I also add in elderberry elixir. So I started using Earthly because I knew I wanted to be taking elderberry supplements, but I didn't want to do gummies because they're horrible for your teeth. And also I didn't know what else to buy because they can be so expensive if you're trying to all take elderberry as a family, especially now with 6 people in our family. Like, you would have to buy 6 bottles, or give or take. You know, littler kids don't need as much, but still it adds up. And if they're like $20 to $30 a piece, that is so expensive every month. And so I absolutely love Earthly's tinctures because you only need a few drops a day. And so we've been taking the elderberry one. A bottle, like the biggest bottle they have, lasts us for like a whole winter, which is amazing when we're taking it every single day, because my youngest daughter, he's not old enough to take it yet. My 4-year-old takes 4 drops a day. My 2 older daughters take 10 drops a day, and I take 30 to 40 drops a day. And I just put it in a little like sugar-free lemonade, to like a tiny bit in a little ramekin, just so that we can drink it down and it doesn't taste too gross. And we literally have barely been sick. I stopped taking it last summer when I was pregnant because I was so nauseous, and I ended up getting pneumonia. So I don't know, maybe I would have gotten pneumonia anyway, but we have barely been sick. I've been taking it again this whole past school year. I don't know that I've been sick once, other than like having a baby. I think I had like a little cold after he was born, but other than that, like barely been sick, other than the pneumonia lingering effects of that. But it's been incredible. My kids are rarely sick, and so I don't know if it's from that, but since we started taking it, we're barely sick, and so I absolutely love it. Another thing we use every day in our homeschool is our homeschool cart. I am definitely not the originator of this, but we just love this particular one. I did use an IKEA one before, and it had more rounded corners, so it's harder to fit books up against to each edge, which I didn't really love. So I have this one that I got on Amazon. I love that it's white, so it blends in more. And its corners are less rounded, so that you can fit things all the way to the edge, even if it's like a book with a 90-degree corner, which sounds weird, but it really does make a difference. I put most of our homeschool stuff on here. We're kind of outgrowing it. We now have to have like a separate bin as well, just because we have so many books and things we use. But I just pull this to the table every single day. It's got our dry erase markers, it's got our nature journals, it's got almost all of our curricula on there. It's got books, it's got our math manipulatives, it's got the little fraction thing that I was talking about. So many different things in there that we can easily pull, and I can switch it out for every school year, and I just love how adaptable they are. They're not super expensive, and they're just really easy to use in a homeschool. I have 2 different books that I want to recommend as well. First of all, we used Long Story Short by Marty Machowski this year, along with my Daily Riches curriculum that I created. It is the Bible study book that we use for this year and for volume 2 that I'm working on right now. And it has been absolutely incredible. I wholeheartedly recommend this book if you're trying to teach the Bible to kids. It teaches a lot of the Old Testament, but all year we got through all of Genesis and some of Exodus. You're moving very slowly, but you're doing that purposefully because you really are trying to, first of all, understand the Bible and what it's saying. Second of all, it helps point you to Jesus and how what happened in the Old Testament was all preparing for what was to come and can all point to Jesus. And also it really has great anecdotes and stories and commentary that helps kids put themselves in the shoes of the different people in the Bible to see that, you know, Moses was just like me. Joseph was just like me. Jacob and Esau. I'm not much better than them. You know, stuff like that, to put yourself in their shoes, to think about it in the context of today's world and how the things that happened then aren't much different than what happens now. And it's just had such great questions to get my kids thinking, and it really breaks down the Bible in bite-sized pieces so that we can fully grasp what's happening. And it's just been a really wonderful resource, and I couldn't recommend it more. Another book that I absolutely love. So my husband, for Mother's Day, I had seen this really cool version of Anne of Green Gables, and I'm a huge Anne Shirley fan, have been for most of my life. And there's this really cool edition, and they have this for a few other books as well, more classics, where they create like different memorabilia to go along with the book, and then they make these like sleeves within the book's pages where they put them. And so as you're reading, you can like open up a dance card or a newspaper from Avonlea during that time. Obviously it's not real, but it fits with the book. And there's lots of different little things, little letters people pretend, you know, that you imagine the characters would have written and things like that. And it's just such a fun way to read a book you already love, or for your kids, if you're trying to get them into some of the classics, it can be just such a fun way to read it, and challenging them to not open up the next sleeve until they've read that many pages. It is so fun. It's such a cool creation, and I am excited to buy more of them. For Christmas this year, my mom got my girls all hiking backpacks, and we love them. So they're great because they include the little pouch for their water and a way to drink it while they're on the go. They're not super big, but they're just big enough for kids, and they can fit their, you know, Band-Aids and their binoculars and things like that. If they want to keep their nature journal in there, or like a field guide, it can all fit in there, and it's been just a wonderful addition to our homeschool and our hikes. Something else we bought in the last like year and a half is an electronic keyboard. So I knew I wanted one of these because I knew I wanted my kids to take piano lessons, but I was honestly very nervous about having a piano in the house for multiple reasons. First of all, I have kids who nap still, and so I was trying to figure out when my kids would practice, and I figured nap time would be a good time for them to practice, but with a regular piano, I knew that would probably be waking my nappers up, which I didn't like the idea of. I also get very overwhelmed as a mom, or just a human, by a lot of noise, and my kids are already very noisy as it is, and so I just thought having a piano that they could go play at any time might just get to me sometimes, or even just when they're practicing, having that noise in addition to other kids talking to me and stuff might be a little overwhelming. And so I loved the idea of an electronic keyboard or electronic piano because the keys are still weighted, so it feels like you can do like louder and softer. There's pedals. Also, they look a lot nicer than a regular keyboard, so they are pretty and can fit along, you know, in our house, and they fit the decor and stuff like that. But you can plug in headphones, and so my kids can plug in headphones and still practice, but nobody else hears what's happening. And so it's just been the best of both worlds. They can unplug it and I can listen to them when I am in the headspace to listen, But if it's too overwhelming or if I have napping kids, we can plug it in. They're still getting all the benefits of a real piano because the weighted keys, but we're getting the extra benefit of the modern age because we can plug headphones in. So I have absolutely loved that decision. Something else that seems like not a big deal, but we have used every single week in our homeschool this past year is a line stencil. So we have used this in our nature journals. We've used it for just drawings the girls have done, and we've used it a lot in our we do illustrated narration every week, so they are illustrating something from the Narnia books that we read the last year and then writing about it. And so I was having them do this on watercolor paper, and then their nature journals also use watercolor paper, which is not lined. And so I would just use my line stencil to add lines. So this has been really wonderful. If they do any kind of like picture they want to save, like we can use lines for them to write about it. Stuff like that. It's just been a really handy thing to have. And then lastly, my mom recently bought our kids this like video game console, but it's not your typical video game console. So I had heard about this just on Amazon looking for different ideas. It's called a playground. It's this little cube that has a camera on it, and you hook it up to your TV. It's digital, meaning like all the games are within it. And you do have to pay for like a subscription every year, I believe, but it has a bunch of games. They're always adding more. And it's kind of like when I was growing up, we had the Wii. I guess that was more like college age. We had the Wii where I think you would like hold controllers and it would kind of sense your movement. This has a camera, and so it is seeing your movements on through the camera, and then it's up on the TV, and so you can play lots of different games. I about died laughing when they did kind of like a Mario style game where like you have to jump up on all the bricks, and so they were just jumping over and over again, and I was like, I would die of like my knees would give out and I would have a heart attack if I tried to play that game. But kids, like, they just kept having to jump, and it was so funny to actually see them jumping the way the character jumps. But anyway, there are dance ones, there are workout ones, but then there are just fun games like bowling and stuff where you're just interacting through movement. And as a Minnesota mom, where sometimes it's just so cold to even get outside at all, like if the wind chill is too low or if we're in a blizzard, but also even when we do get outside, it's not the hours and hours we normally spend outside during the warm months. And so having a way for them to get their wiggles out and move, but in a fun way that feels like they're having screen time, which they are, but they're being interactive with it. So I feel a lot better about it. It's just been a really great thing. We can do it as a family. Like, we've played tennis and bowling together on there before. And it's just, I often will have the kids go play that if they come inside because they're really hot outside. To give them something to do, like when I'm making supper, and they feel special because they get to turn the TV on, and I'm like, hey, they're moving and I can finish what I'm doing without everybody being on top of me. So it's been wonderful. I highly recommend it if you are interested in like video games for your kids but don't want to buy like a traditional video game console. It's a great kind of best of both worlds thing. So those are 20 different things that I am loving as a homeschool mom. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you subscribe if you like homeschooling content, and I will see you next time. Bye.